So hello, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously a beautiful sunny day here at the Eldora Speedway. Beautiful day for $100,000 to win. Historical big one. Return of the historical big one here at the Eldora Speedway. $100,000 on the line. And then an amazing week to follow. Tomorrow night, night before the King's Royal. And then Saturday night, $175,000 to win on the grand finale of the King's Royal, a grand finale of the weekend. But out of all that that's going on, there is something that is just a little bit wrong, in my opinion, that is currently happening. Of course, everybody saw the high limit sprint car series that was announced yesterday. Of course, Flow Racing is branded as the streaming service that is going to be providing the broadcast for that series. Now, it is from my understanding, because a lot of people are like, wow, why ain't none of the Outlaws talking about, why isn't nobody like mentioning it? From my understanding, and I would say the teams were threatened, but we'll say reminded that in their contracts for the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series that they cannot promote, share, tweet, talk about other series. So I really don't know how that's worked out when certain drivers are talking about USAC racing or other types of racing, late models. We've seen some drivers tweet and talk about late model races and this and that. But when it comes to this high limit sprint car series that is coming in 2023, you cannot right now as a World of Outlaw team talk about this series at all. They were reminded of that, and from my understanding, Brad Sweet was reminded heavily. Of course, it is the Brad Sweet and Kyle Larson sprint car series that is coming. Now, obviously, Kyle Larson made a stance with this series. He believes that some of the sprint car drivers deserve to be getting paid more. From my understanding, a lot of the sprint car drivers want and deserve and think about being paid more, especially when they see what the late model series has done. And now that they see this other series coming along, they're wanting to probably be a part of it. Now, from my understanding, the reason this was a blast reminder is that there were entities in the World of Outlaw Sprint Car Series that were shocked and blindsided by this announcement. I honestly cannot believe that, because I knew about this series over a month ago. I knew that this was coming almost over a month ago. And I was told through the pitting area of big time sprint car events. And I'm kind of worried. Can I say I was told that by World of Outlaw people on the grounds? It's not World of Outlaw, but like people at World of Outlaw events. That I was told about this series almost a month ago? A little over a month ago? How are you blindsided? Whoever's blindsided, you are the problem. You are extremely disconnected from your drivers, your series, and your organization. How can you be so blindsided by an announcement like this about this series when everyone knew it was coming? Even my ass knew it was coming. Now, obviously, some people are wanting to be the jokes are Chaz for race director of the new high limit series. That would be hilarious, but I'm just saying, if you want to be involved in a big time series or event, you got to be a little connected to the people that are actually being a part of it. So I think, for one, the organization made a huge mistake by trying to, I would say, strong arm or threaten teams to not talk about this other series. It also shows how weak you are and threatened by this other series. And it also shows how the notion that you were blindsided shows how disconnected you were from the drivers and teams and people in the sport. That is so scary. Now, speaking of disconnected, obviously, Kyle Larson is not too disconnected, because the other story that came out yesterday is that Kyle Larson will not be going to next year's Chili Bowl because of the low payout. Well, finally, somebody besides me and a couple other people were bitching about Chili Bowl payout. $10,000 to win. And I don't even want to think about how long it's been $10,000 to win. Finally, someone on the level of a Kyle Larson came out and took a stance and said, I'm not going to go. And hopefully, and there was rebuttal from the Emmett Hahn and the Chili Bowl organization that we're not going to budge just because this one guy. Okay, well, that's, once again, disconnected from the realities of the sport. Costs are up, fuel's up. I mean, we ain't going to talk about how much it costs to run a midget when y'all first started paying $10,000 to win. And we can go on for days about how much a midget operation to compete for or win there costs. It's unbelievably high. So, Kyle Larson, thank you. And I hope a lot of these midget teams and organizations stand with him and come out publicly. And yeah, maybe Kyle Larson on his own ain't going to get these guys to budge and pay a decent wage. But if other people do, then that might do something. Stand with Kyle Larson. I can't believe I'm saying this. He's doing things right and wrong. And I'll tell you what, he did so many things right, in my opinion, yesterday. So many things right. We went over and bought a Carhartt Kyle Larson shirt. Look at my horrible hair. And we bent it like a man bends a hat. We bent it like a man bends a hat. And I'll tell you what, it's a Carhartt. I like the color, gold obviously. And I believe he's been making some gold decisions. And I hope a lot of other people stand behind these gold decisions. Now, something that a lot of people ain't really paying attention to in this when they're trying to tell drivers that y'all ain't worth it, or maybe a team in the World of Outlaws is against the series that's being created by Larson and Sweet, but the drivers are like, why are you against it? The next thing y'all got to worry about now, since y'all want to start telling people what to do and where to go and where to be, and obviously this is all about the streaming because of Flow Racing and Dirt Vision, the battle is on now for the sprint car dominance, or at least Dirt Vision's power is being challenged for sure. And I heard somebody yesterday say that Dirt Vision stock dropped like 50% at the announcement. I don't know how valid that is, but I would not be surprised. Publicly, it definitely has, especially when you're telling people what to do. You know, that's not a lot of confidence in yourself or a lot of respect and appreciation for your drivers. Now, speaking of the drivers, things like what Kyle Larson is doing and what these organizations are doing and what Chili Bell's saying and what these organizations are making people do, you might want to be worried about a drivers union coming real quick. And teams and people who want to cut a streaming revenue and want power and stakehold, you might want to worry about your drivers wanting some of the same. In my opinion, I would influence the drivers to think about starting a drivers union, because y'all are starting to get pushed around. Somebody made a good point last night. I was like, well, Brad Sweet ain't on for the Outlaws next year. Somebody else will just jump in. I said, somebody else will just take a spot if you don't want to do it. And they're like, you think the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series could survive without these names, without the drivers? Without the shots, without the sweets, he just started naming off all the Outlaws. If these guys wanted to leave, they would find cars, and wherever they go in those new cars would be a bigger entity than the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series. Now, the World of Outlaws knows this, and they should have been raising their pay and making sure that their people that they've been taking care of and had the market closed on were happy in the market that they had closed. And now the door has cracked open to a free market, and it apparently, I made the statement in yesterday's video, they were extremely scared, but with hearing what I'm hearing now, it ain't just a guess, it's a for sure. They are scared to the point that they are reminding teams, if you talk about it, you're in breach of contract, and you're gonna suffer the fucking consequences. That's what it's taken as, in my opinion. And I'm sure a lot of these drivers and teams and people are taking it that way too. Some ain't. Apparently there's going to be discussions and people are trying to work things out and be nice, but as far as throwing gauntlets down, that's it. And if you were blindsided, you ain't been blindsided. You just reassured yourself that you have been disconnected from the series and racing scene that you are a part of, and that don't look good for you either. So I would retract blindsided immediately, regardless. Thank you, Kyle Larson, for the things that you have been doing. And I want to address one more thing before I get out of here. I went to the Kyle Larson trailer to buy this, and the lady working in there said, you look familiar, what's your name? Oh, you're the Chaz. Oh, you hate Kyle, huh? You hate Kyle, what are you doing here? It's like, I don't hate Kyle Larson, the driver. I hate the fans that cheer for the Larsonites. And I broke down why I hate the fans of Kyle Larson. The insane ones. You could be a casual one, you people in California because he's from there, that makes sense. Here's the problem with the Kyle Larson character, because Kyle Larson ain't the last one to come. Hopefully, maybe he is, but you look at sprint car racing as a whole, and prior to 1990, the stars of sprint car racing were Doug Wolfgang, Steve Kinser, Sammy Swindell, the stars driving sprint cars, similar to the late model community today. Their stars are the drivers that race week in and week out. And then in 1990, the cold trickle effect of a sprint car driver going to NASCAR and racing some man in black took off. And then in 94, a driver named Jeff Gordon did the same with the same organization that funded the movie, which is so crazy to me. I don't even want to guess why they knew about the wreck in Turn 4 at Daytona. But the point is, that character of a sprint car driver going to NASCAR and being a big deal has trumped the sprint car Sammys and Kinsers and Wolfgangs. Those are the stars. Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Casey Kane, and now Kyle Larson. So it's not a hate for Kyle Larson. It is a hate for this marketing scheme that has plagued the sprint car fan base for 30 years. And we got Sammys and Steve Kinsers right out here right now. They're just not getting that same fan attention as those guys because they're living in a shadow of the cold trickle effect. And it's not necessarily a hate for the driver. It's a hate for the fans that have been manipulated into cheering for the one guy who goes to NASCAR instead of all these other guys who are racing week in and week out. And my greatest example of how this affects the sport is late model racing that has been paying so much more. And they've been paying so much more because they have a free open market that hasn't been latched on. Because the fans won't allow it. They never had a NASCAR driver be bigger than Scott Bloomquist. And they don't have a NASCAR driver that's bigger than Jonathan Davenport right now either, or a Chris Madden, or any of their superstars. You put Kyle Larson's trailer next to Donnie Schatz and the line for Larson's around the block, and Donnie's got 10 or 15 people. You put Kyle Larson's t-shirt trailer next to Jonathan Davenport's, and there's 10 or 15 people at Larson's trailer and a line around the block for Davenport. That's a fan issue. That's not a driver issue. And so I don't necessarily hate Kyle Larson. In fact, with the things and stuff he's standing for right now, I'm a big fan of what he's doing in the racing political world. Because he's doing the things that need to be done. And I guess I'm the only one out here that can say all this stuff that's happening. But it's a character, it's a fan base issue, and hopefully, as long as I keep on trying to remind you of why I do not like a Kyle Larson, you can start seeing the scheme that is being played on your ass, and you can wake up and recognize the other drivers that are out here, and you can cheer for them, and maybe start something new in a new era of sprint car fan and racing appreciation. And that sounds like it might just have to happen under the high limit sprint car series. See, I can talk about it because I ain't got a contract with anybody, apparently. So anyway, great event here at Eldora Speedway. Great event coming this weekend. Great decisions and moves by Kyle Larson. And I do want to say, man, I cannot believe that one of the most powerful represented organizations in sprint car racing history, like the World of Outlaws, is that disconnected to be blindsided and that arrogant to remind teams who you work for. Disgusting. Okay, that's all I got to say today. Tune in tonight, ladies and gentlemen, on Dirt Vision. By the way, I support Dirt Vision and Flow. Broadcast companies, I don't care. I care about rights and wrongs. And that ain't right. Tonight, on Eldora Speedway, it's going to be Dirt Vision. Next year, on Flow, is going to be the High Limit Sprint Car Series. And I think we're going to have a little bit of a shake-up when we get to next year. So, not only is that the case, but you need to tune in to Dirt Vision tonight to watch the Eldora Speedway historical big one, and this weekend with the King's Royal, with the World Outlaw Sprint Car Series, because this may be your final year, your final opportunity to see a full conglomerate World of Outlaw Sprint Car Series with all the stars and all the cars. Because with the moves that are being made, you may not be able to see that in the future. Thanks for tuning in. Hit the subscribe button. Thanks for all the supporters out there. Your name's been added into the description, and there's links in the description to join the support. If you like truth, if you like talking, if you like saying what should be said, go on down there, join the support. And hey, subscribe and sharing the videos. It's just as big, just as much as support. Ain't go long live the Chaz, get my hat, but I mean, right now, I really like wearing this. This is how we ride, this is how we do.